Have you ever wanted to know what the worst things about living in Nashville are? My name is Andrew Lindsay, and I have a goal of traveling the world and helping other travelers do the same, and I put out a video like this every single week, so be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that notifications bell so that way you never miss a video. And today I want to talk about the worst things about living in Nashville. Now I know this isn't exactly a travel video, but people seem to love my Nashville content, so I wanted to tell you guys all about the worst things about living in Nashville. And a few weeks back, I did a video on the best parts about living in Nashville. And if you want to check that out, I will leave a button somewhere here in the video for you to check it out. Now, Nashville overall is a pretty cool place to live, but there are definitely some bad things about living here. And I want to share those with you today. So let's jump right into number one. First thing is the bad weather. So the weather here in Nashville actually really sucks. In fact, this whole part of the country, the weather pretty much sucks. There are flash floods that happen here. In fact, if you go look back in 2010, if you go look at some pictures of the 2010 Nashville flood, you will see where the entire downtown was flooded, and that's why basements here in Nashville just don't exist, because nobody wants to get a flooded basement. On top of that, it gets super humid here, it rains a lot, it gets super cold during the winter, the weather's bipolar, and my least favorite part is the tornadoes. Now, this isn't as bad as somewhere like Oklahoma, for example, but Nashville definitely gets tornadoes. In fact, back in 2020, we had a tornado that pretty much dropped in the middle of the night, did a lot of damage, and killed about 20 people, and there was virtually no warning. And overall, I really hate the weather here, and it's probably the biggest driving force in me thinking about leaving Nashville. The second thing that sucks about living in Nashville is that there are no good workout parks here. So if you're coming from a place like California or Florida where you guys got pull-up bars and workout equipment right on the beach, then you are going to be highly disappointed when you find out that there are virtually no good workout parks here in Nashville. There are actually two that I'm aware of. There's one in front of the amphitheater downtown, and that one sucks because there's pretty much no parking and the pull-up bar is way too fat to be using as a pull-up bar. And then there's another one in East Nashville that is actually pretty decent, but the problem here is that it closes around 8 and there's really no lights or anything for you to see out there, and they lock it up and everything. But on top of that, because of this issue, whenever there's any bad weather or anything, because Nashville has bad weather, then you aren't going to be able to work out outside, which really sucks. Again, unlike Miami or California, where you've got really good weather and you can pretty much work out outside all the time. You don't have that luxury here. So if you're somebody like me who's into fitness and specifically into calisthenics and you want some good pull-up bars and you'd love to work out outside, then you're going to be very disappointed with the fact that we don't have any good workout parks here in Nashville besides maybe the one in the East. The next thing that I don't like about living in Nashville is the high prices. So this is kind of subjective depending on what your budget is and where you're coming from. If you're coming from a small town and you move to Nashville, then you are going to think that the prices are very expensive. If you come from California, then you are going to think that the prices are very affordable. In fact, I actually had this same tip listed as one of the better parts of living in Nashville because it's literally a matter of which perspective you're sitting on. The prices here in Nashville can be one of the worst parts about living here if you're moving from somewhere where it's much cheaper, but if you're, again, coming from somewhere where it's more expensive, then the prices are one of the best things about living here. So it really is just a matter of perspective, but the prices here are a little bit expensive, at least for my taste. Now, real quick, if you're enjoying this video, I wanted to mention my free resource, the Ultimate Budget Travel Guide. I created this free resource so that way you'd have a list of a bunch of dream budget destinations, as well as all the resources that you needed to plan your entire trip without breaking the bank, all at your fingertips. And on top of that, this is an ever-growing free resource. So if you choose to pick it up, then you will get an email anytime I update it to download the updated version. And if you want to pick this up, be sure to click the link in the description of this video. Now on to the next worst part of Nashville. The next worst thing about living in Nashville is the traffic. So that small town feel does not come with small town traffic, I promise you. We've had so many people move here to Nashville that the traffic is absolutely insane. In fact, we have one of the worst traffic jams in the entire country where I-24 and I-40 meet. And the traffic is just absolutely terrible during work hours or when people are going to work in the mornings or coming home from work in the afternoon. And just the traffic here sucks, so be aware of that. Our infrastructure is not built for the amount of people that have moved here. So yeah, definitely one of the worst parts about living in Nashville. The next worst thing about living in Nashville is that everything pretty much closes early. So, you know, if you're coming from a place like Vegas, or you're coming from a place where, you know, everything stays open real late and there's always parties and stuff going on, well, in Nashville, aside from Lower Broadway and maybe Upper Broadway, you're not gonna get that as much. pretty much everything off of Upper Broadway and Lower Broadway is pretty much closing usually around 9 or 10 o'clock. We don't have a huge nightlife outside of that. I mean, there are a few, places where people hang out late at night, but you kind of got to find them, and most of the time it's places that only locals know about. So, for those of you that love your super late nights, Broadway is pretty much going to be the only place you're going to get late night activity. And for locals like me, I personally don't like Broadway, so that's not really something that I will personally enjoy for my late night fun. But yeah, everything in Nashville, unlike somewhere like Vegas, closes early, and that sucks. Another one of the worst parts about living in Nashville is loud music and loud neighbors. So a lot of people move to Nashville, and I think that they forget that this is Music City, and that means that pretty much anywhere you live, there is a good chance that a musician lives somewhere nearby, whether that's an apartment complex, a neighborhood, doesn't really matter. Even where I live, I hear a band practicing somewhere nearby. And in apartment complexes, a lot of the time you have people above you, under you, next to you, somewhere playing music, mixing music, producing music. It doesn't matter. Music is all over the place. And what trips me out is the people who move here and they move somewhere where there's a bunch of loud music, like near Broadway, and then they complain and do noise complaints. Just don't do that. But be aware of the fact that, there is loud music pretty much everywhere. There's at least a good chance that you'll move in next to loud neighbors. For me personally, I am one of those loud neighbors, so I don't complain about it, but it's definitely an issue for those of you that like your peace and quiet. But keep in mind, if you can't stand loud music, then be sure to try to move somewhere where there are really no musicians at, or just don't move to Nashville. So the next thing that sucks about living in Nashville is that recreational marijuana is not legal yet. Now, I know you may be thinking that it's Music City and you would expect it to be legal in a place like this, but it is not. We are still, pretty restrictive on our marijuana laws. Now, don't get me wrong, in Davidson County, where Nashville's at, you won't get in a lot of trouble if you only have a little bit. But if you're in the surrounding counties like Williamson or Wilson County, then they are much stricter on their marijuana laws. In fact, my friend got pulled over down in the Williamson part of town, and he got like a year of probation. And I actually got pulled over in the Wilson part of county and got searched, even though I didn't have any marijuana, and they were looking for it. And fortunately I didn't have any, but had I had some, I probably would have gotten in some trouble. So just be aware of that. If you're coming from somewhere where it's legal, you're gonna be disappointed when you find out that it is not legal here. The next thing that sucks about living in Nashville is the shitty roads. So I mentioned this earlier, how our infrastructure was not built for the amount of people who have moved here, which is one aspect of the shitty roads. But another aspect of the shitty roads is the fact that we have so many potholes here, and yeah, it's just not really good for your car. I've never been somewhere that has so many potholes. So yeah, we have some crappy roads. We're trying to fix them, but yeah, be aware of that. The next thing that sucks about living in Nashville is bad public transportation. So we do not have a subway system. We do not have very good public transportation. We've got a bus system, which is, it's a bus. It's not exactly the greatest thing in the world, but most of our public transportation is Uber and Lyft and things like that. So just be aware of that. Again, if you're used to taking public transportation to get around, you don't really have good public transportation here in Nashville. The next con of living in Nashville is the tourism. So this is another con that was a pro on my other list, and the reason for that is, again, it's a matter of perspective. The reason that tourism can be a pro is because it brings a lot of people to town, makes the town a lot of money, and that generally means that there's a lot of things to do. But it's a con because you get a lot of people who are not from here basically, filling up downtown. Streets will be blocked off, parking will go up in price, and you just got to deal with all the congestion of having all these people here who are coming for concerts, coming for, regular tourist attractions and so forth. So yeah, tourism can definitely be a con when you're having to deal with all the people that come here all the time. And the last worst thing about living in Nashville is the allergies. So I actually mentioned the bad allergies in my Don'ts of Nashville Part 2 video, which I'll leave a link somewhere in the video for you to go check that out if you want to. But yeah, the allergies in Nashville suck because Nashville's kind of like in a bowl, and considering the amount of humidity and the fact that everything downtown at some point has pretty much been submerged underwater, meaning that most of the buildings have mold, and on top of that, they're really old buildings, and on top of that, we just have so many people coming in all the time. Allergies here are crazy. So if you're somebody who has severe allergies, you are not going to love it here in Nashville. And if you're somebody visiting, then you're gonna wanna bring your allergy meds if you take them to treat your allergies. So those are the worst parts about living in Nashville. I hope you guys enjoyed enjoyed this video. And real quick, before the video comes to an end, I wanted to mention one more time my free resource, the Ultimate Budget Travel Guide. I created this free resource so that way you would have a bunch of dream destinations and all the resources you needed to plan an entire trip all at your fingertips. And this is an ever-growing resource, which means I will add to it over time. And if you want to pick that up, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of this video. And if you enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like, leave me a comment so we can chat in the comments, and share this with somebody who can gain some value from it. And I will see you guys next week. Peace.